When a man steps into intimacy, he crosses a line few ever name. It is an invisible border where his outer self meets his shadow, and love can only begin if he has the courage to stay there. Carl Jung once said that life's greatest confrontations do not happen in the world, but within the soul. Nowhere does that inner conflict rise more intensely than in the first instant of closeness. For years, the world has reduced that moment to something simple, physical, fleeting, driven by desire alone. But beneath the quiet language of touch, something far deeper unfolds. A storm of emotions men rarely admit. Not to their partners, not to their friends, and often not even to themselves. Behind the calm face of every man lies a labyrinth. In that silent second before connection, he stands at the doorway between who he pretends to be and who he truly is. His confidence, his fears, his buried memories all awaken at once. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Nowhere is that more real than here. Because in that moment, a man is not simply connecting with another person, he is confronting the mirror of his own psyche. This is where the archetypes rise: the lover, proud, alive, and full of passion; the child, quietly searching for comfort; the warrior, struggling to remain in control. Each one speaks. Each one shapes what follows. This is why intimacy is never simple. It awakens contradictions, tenderness and hesitation, passion and withdrawal, closeness followed by sudden silence. In this journey, you will uncover what lives beneath those contradictions, portature of hidden Jungian truths that reveal what a man truly feels in that moment of closeness. These are not shallow ideas about attraction or technique. They are windows into the unconscious. By the end, you will no longer see intimacy as a mystery to chase, but as a mirror that reveals who we truly are. Most people believe intimacy begins with the body, with touch, pleasure, and desire fulfilled. But Jung saw something deeper. He saw it as the moment when the unconscious reveals itself, when the masks we wear begin to crack. A man does not just step toward another person, he steps into the deepest chamber of himself. In the quiet space between breath and heartbeat, every hidden emotion rises: pride, fear, longing, doubt, all competing for control. The world teaches men to appear steady, powerful, unshakable, certain. But behind that image lives a truth rarely spoken. No one taught them how to carry vulnerability without shame, so they hide it. Behind strength, behind performance, behind the illusion that control equals safety. But intimacy strips that illusion away. It becomes a mirror of truth. Every suppressed feeling returns. Every forgotten insecurity wakes up. The persona he shows the world collides with his shadow, the silent reflection of everything he denies. This is why intimacy feels dangerous to a man, because here, his strength and his fragility are exposed together. And though he may never say it out loud, his heart asks a quiet question that shapes every connection. Will I still be accepted if I am fully seen? Many women sense this shift, even if they cannot explain it. Confidence softens into silence. Warmth turns into hesitation. And that pause is often mistaken for distance. But it is not distance. It is the soul negotiating between pride and truth. To understand this is to see beyond the surface. A man's withdrawal after intimacy is rarely about fading desire. It is often his shadow trying to protect itself, the fear of being completely known. Jung wrote that love is the process through which the soul becomes aware of itself. That is what intimacy truly is, a threshold where both people are invited to face what lies beneath their masks. And from that moment, the real story begins. Now we step into the first hidden truth, the collision between power and vulnerability. The first thing a man feels is not dominance, it is contradiction. A surge of strength colliding with a wave of vulnerability. Two ancient forces waking at once, the instinct to lead and the fear of being seen. For a brief moment, he feels chosen, worthy, accepted. The warmth of trust affirms something deep within him, a quiet voice saying, "You are enough." But beneath that, something fragile moves, a subtle doubt, a fear that he may not meet what is unspoken, and this is what he hides most carefully. Behind confidence, behind rhythm, behind control, there is a question. Did I truly connect or only exist on the surface? This is the inner conflict many never see. What looks like strength often carries uncertainty beneath it. Inside him, three forces move together. The lover, proud to be desired. The child, quietly seeking reassurance. The warrior, holding everything together. This is the paradox of the masculine psyche. Strong, yet uncertain, proud yet tender, drawn toward connection, yet tempted to retreat. Some men cover this with arrogance. They perform, exaggerate, overcompensate. But arrogance is not strength, it is protection. Others, rarer, allow themselves to soften. They slow down, they stay present. And in that stillness, something real begins to form. This is why, after intimacy, a man may either come closer or pull away. If fear takes over, he rebuilds his mask. If he feels safe, he leans in, seeking connection, not escape. Jung taught that what we resist will return. If a man rejects his own vulnerability, it will appear in other ways, through doubt, projection, or distance. But if he accepts both his strength and his fragility, he begins to integrate them. He becomes whole. This is the beginning of transformation. And for a woman, understanding this changes everything. Because a man does not seek only release, he seeks a space where both his strength and his softness can exist without judgment. When that space exists, something rare happens. He finds peace. The first layer of intimacy is not conquest, it is exposure. He feels powerful because he is chosen. He feels fragile because he fears he may not be chosen again. And then comes the second truth: validation. For many men, that moment feels like proof that they are desired, worthy, seen. But this feeling is delicate because it depends on something outside of them. Jung believed that what we seek externally often reflects what we lack internally. And this is where the hidden struggle begins. If his sense of worth depends entirely on response, he will keep searching. Not for connection, but for confirmation. This is not ego, it is a deeper fear, the fear of being unseen, unremembered, not enough. So he looks for reassurance in the only place he feels allowed to receive it. But when validation becomes the goal, connection becomes performance. And performance can never create peace. True connection begins when both people stop trying to prove something and start allowing themselves to simply be seen. When a man no longer asks, "Am I enough?" but instead stands in the moment and says, "I am here." That is when everything changes. That is when presence replaces pressure. That is when connection becomes real. And this is where the deeper journey begins. They blur the boundary between desire and emotion, letting a man believe he is still in control when he is already deeply entangled. But Jung saw further. He understood that intimacy is not merely biological, it is symbolic. A merging of opposites, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow. When a man steps into closeness, he is not only seeking pleasure, he is encountering the feminine image within his own soul. It is another's presence he feels, but it is his own hidden self he meets. This is why a single connection can linger within him for years. Even when logic tells him it meant nothing, his body remembers. The warmth, the rhythm, the quiet sense of belonging. His unconscious holds onto it as something sacred. He may forget the details, but he does not forget the feeling of being complete. Jung warned that when this inner image is projected outward, a man mistakes another person for the missing part of himself. He holds on, not always out of love, but because she carries something he has not yet found within. So he returns, again and again. Not always out of devotion, but out of hunger. A hunger to feel whole. This is the unseen force that pulls a man back, even when he convinces himself he has moved on. But there is danger in this illusion. If he confuses connection with possession, he becomes controlling. If he denies it completely, he becomes scattered, losing himself in countless experiences, never realizing he is chasing the same feeling in different forms. The truth is harsh. When a man leaves a part of himself in another soul, he cannot fully walk away until he understands what was awakened within him. Until he meets that missing part inside himself, he remains haunted by its reflection outside. For a woman, this explains a mystery that often feels impossible to solve. Why he returns when he should not, why he cannot explain his pull, why he seems divided between distance and closeness. He is not playing a game. He is caught in something deeper, the pull of his own incompleteness. The body forms a bond, but the psyche forms something far stronger. Both remind him of what Jung always taught. Every act of connection is, at its core, a search for wholeness. He is not just reaching outward, he is searching inward. One man once admitted in therapy, "I told myself it meant nothing, but in that moment, something inside me opened, and afterward, I couldn't stop thinking, what if I was just someone she forgets?" That quiet confession reveals what most men never say. Intimacy does not only awaken desire, it awakens fear. The fear of being ordinary, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of being seen, and then unseen again. Many men convince themselves they can keep things light, as if the body could remain untouched by the soul. They believe they can walk away unaffected, but Jung would remind them, the unconscious does not follow logic. Every connection leaves an imprint. At first, fear speaks louder than anything else. It whispers questions. Was I enough? Did I truly connect? Will this moment mean anything when it fades? Fear compares. Fear builds walls. Fear tells him to hide. But beneath that noise, something deeper awakens. The inner feminine, the part of him he has long ignored. Through this, he feels emotions he once suppressed. Tenderness, attachment, longing, devotion. The person before him becomes more than a partner. She becomes a mirror, reflecting something within him he cannot control. This is why even those who claim they want nothing serious can find themselves pulled into something deeper. They were never prepared to meet this part of themselves, and once it awakens, they begin to move between two forces. One moment, they withdraw into silence. The next, they hold on more tightly than before. This is not contradiction, it is inner conflict. One voice urges distance, the other asks for closeness. Jung taught that love and fear are deeply connected. Both arise when we face something real within ourselves. Fear reveals the wound. Love reveals the possibility of healing. But staying in that space requires courage, and many never remain there long enough. The man who avoids love becomes guarded. He turns connection into control, into pride, into something safe but empty. He speaks of independence, but quietly he is ruled by what he refuses to feel. The man who allows himself to feel, even with fear present, begins to change. He understands that closeness is not weakness, it is a passage. For women, this explains a pattern that often feels confusing. When he pulls away after closeness, it is rarely because he feels nothing. It is because he feels too much. His heart opens, and his mind does not know how to handle what enters. Fear tells him to leave, love asks him to stay, and many men spend years suspended between the two. But when a man finally accepts both, when he allows fear and love to exist together, something shifts. He stops fighting himself. He begins what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. And in that moment, connection is no longer a test of identity, it becomes a path to awareness. For centuries, masculinity was defined by conquest. To achieve, to prove, to leave a legacy. Closeness was not about meaning, it was about duty. But the world has changed. Today, the real challenge is not outside, it is within. A man is no longer proving himself against the world. He is facing his own reflection. Jung believed that connection reveals identity more than anything else, because it is where the mask begins to break. The image he shows others meets a deeper question. Who am I when I am fully seen? A man may enter connection believing he is strong, certain, in control. But afterward, something quiet appears. A question. Did I show up as who I believe I am? Was I real, or was I performing? This is the hidden tension between image and truth. Connection does not only involve the body, it reveals identity. Every moment becomes feedback, not about performance, but about presence. Jung wrote that true presence is awareness, being fully in the moment, without defense, without illusion. And that is where the deepest transformation begins.